Hi, so I'm Jack. I'm CFO of Stack Overflow, and just to give a little bit of context, Stack Overflow is the world's largest community for developers, primarily on Q&A. We are a secretly large community. We're a top 30 in the country for traffic, and if you're a developer, you sort of use us all day. And so what I'm going to talk about here is a little bit about how we've scaled the business. Even though we're a developer community, our revenue is more like a SaaS business and more like a software business. So a little bit about how that's worked here and how you really help get your business ready to be a public company. There we go. Okay, sorry. So the first thing is a little bit of just an overview of how you want to build your team, how you want to think about it. And obviously there's a lot of other groups when you think about scaling your business to be public, but just to focus on sort of finance, accounting, and legal for a second. So early on, we talk about bookkeeping, which I guess I have to use a different term now. We talk about, finance. Finance, the early hires are really just the analysts, starting to understand finance as a partner in the org. And as you grow, you want to get more sophisticated. You have FP&A, you need VP of Finance, Investor Relations in the very end. On the accounting side, I'd say the general progression is similar, except that near the end, you're going to get some things that are very specific, whether it's a revenue controller, just worrying about how each contract is booked, internal tax, internal audit. But most of these things are like the last year or so. You can probably get through the generalist CPA up until then. Legal is something that's actually been, I find interesting, has evolved over the years. From a current organization, we were able to do without in-house legal for a long time. We've used sort of a law firm helping, almost acting as a general counsel. But right now, we've hired sort of a corporate counsel. So kind of someone who's worry about contracts, worry about vendor agreements, worry about IP. And later on, eventually, you really don't need, I think, at this point, a real senior in-house general counsel until really near the end. So the other part I found, at least early on, it's really important to get your external team set up pretty well. And by this, I mean the legal firm, which may be your most important early professional partner, is you want to find this legal firm that will scale with you. You want to kind of avoid changing lawyers a lot because they have a lot of these sort of, will make your later life a lot easier because they worry about compliance or about cap reps and so on. Audit's a little different. I found audit, you can have a small firm at first and it'll cost you a lot less. And then if you start to get on the track to where you consider you want to be able to go public, you want to make sure you have the Big Four firm in-house about 3 years before. Ideally 5, but 3 years you can usually be all right with that. What I also found with audit, when you do that transition, the first couple of years are pretty ugly. You generally will find a lot of mistakes that the initial auditors do, especially around equity. So you want to make sure you give yourself time to run through those. I know that we use PwC now. The first 2 audits took months and months and months. The last audit, 6 weeks. So you want to give yourself time to get that process going. Tax, I like to keep it separate from the auditor. If you're a public company, you can't have the same firm do both. So, it's something where you're able to outsource a lot. And I'll talk a bit about compliance later, but having a good tax partner, having an audit partner, having a good legal partner is going to be critical to save you a lot of headaches later on as you scale. And lastly, this is something you'll probably start having as you get within a couple years of want to be a public company is advisors. Especially if you are in enterprise clients like banks and financial institutions, they're going to want certain audits done, like SOC Type 2 audits. So you need partners for that. And then as you get closer to public, you have to worry about other audits like SOX 302, 404. You don't want to worry about them too much until the very end. You also don't want to worry too much in-house. You want to rely on external partners. So you're going to make sure you have them lined up. And also what I found too is you have your audit firm do all your audit, but then you'll have sort of in-house things you want to work on, very specific, let's say around RevRec or around segmentation around your accounting. That's where you can also leverage some partners to help you get into the GL, into the system, and work with your team maybe before you need to hire those people internally. So getting all the external teams set up, I find, is an important part of scaling, because the teams start to deliver a lot of things as you get past the Series B and Series C rounds. And it gets sort of ugly. It gets sort of, there's a long tail of things you have to worry about as you grow. Just as an example here, tax and state filings get kind of crazy. At Stack Overflow, we are big believers in remote workforces. We have 85 people that work remotely out of our 320 or so employees. So we have people in 18 states. Each state has its own nexus rules, own sales tax rules, use tax rules, filing things. It's really hard to deal with. The internal teams, the corporate teams, the accounting teams have to sort of deliver. We can't say, no, we're not going to let you hire anybody in Illinois because we don't want to deal with their paperwork anymore, right? So you have no choice. So you want to make sure you build a process with partners that you can manage these things. Because the longer you put it off, as you get closer to your public, that stuff gets really difficult to fix and really sort of expensive. HR, there's a lot of things that you don't realize when you start a company. When you're 30 people, you have to worry about. But you get past 150 people, you have to have your 401k audited. There's a bunch of, especially in New York State, you have to send a letter to all your employees every year confirming their comp. There's all these long tail HR compliance things you have to worry about. So really, I'm not going to lead one of these, it's kind of dry obviously, but the key is organizing in a way where you have between your external partners and internal partners, sort of like compliance calendars. You have sort of a checklist of everything they have to do. You can certainly have, we have our tax partner help us with all the Nexus stuff. We have, our law firm help us with all the HR compliance things. So we have our sort of foundation set up. So as we scale, this becomes something that scales with us and not something we have to fix later on. So the other part is that as you scale, you have to worry about is how your company's structured. And especially with international entities, we have a couple, and each one has an equivalent almost as the US. So we have a UK entity, which has its own little compliance things. And again, you can scale by making sure you pick the right partners. We have we're in Germany as well, and the same thing. It's really about finding the right partners and trying as early as possible doing it the right way. Spend a little bit extra money to make sure you do the right filings, make sure you get sort of the right compliance calendar set up. I know, prior to this company, I was with a company called Return Path, and we started in 2000. So back then, we were all about being scrappy. Went through 2 recessions, so you had to be scrappy. You couldn't hire a bunch of teams. So, we took some shortcuts to make sure we could get things done and hire the next engineer. And that was a mistake. I learned it's not such a thing to make too scrappy as a CFO, and you want to make sure that you spend the time up front to do these things right around compliance and around corporate structures. Another thing I talk about is option plans. That's something where, as a technology company, all employees have options, and there's a lot of subtlety and complexity around option plans, especially in different countries. I know in the UK we've already had 3 different kind of plans because of the requirements of our employee size and asset sizes dictated different plans over the time, and you have to kind of stay on top of that. The 409A valuation is another one. I know 10 years ago, this was a bigger deal as far as making sure you had a sensible progression of 409A before you go public. There was a big issue around cheap stock as you file your S1. It's less of an issue these days. Basically, everybody's doing 409A to have a good progression, so that's great. The one thing I'd say about that is valuation partners become important as you get bigger. And what I mean by that is you need to have a valuation person doing your 409A, or at least has an opinion valuation that can talk and argue with valuation of during M&A. So for example, you may have a great relationship with your audit firm and great relationship with your audit partner. When they have to value something for the audit, let's say you made an acquisition, or you did a tender, or something like that, and that becomes during the audit, their valuation team gets brought in, and they're independent of that audit group. And they will grill you on every little assumption you made, no matter how arcane. So you need a 409A partner that can stand up to that valuation group. So that's an example there. The other one is contract management systems, something that we're in the middle of dealing with now, but it becomes increasingly important as you get bigger. And it is one of those things that you will spend a lot of money on if you're going through any kind of major diligence, whether it's a Series D round, an acquisition, an IPO, where you will end up spending a lot of money with a law firm because some associate will go through every possible client contract trying to find out what they talked about in marketing rights, what they talked about on limitation liability, ownership of IP. So you want a system as soon as possible before it gets too difficult that starts tracking all these exceptions to your templates, that starts tracking all your requirements with your vendors and cancellation rights and all these things. Again, it's kind of the theme here, where the longer you wait for all of these items, it's going to get harder and more expensive later on. So this is sort of my favorite topic of scalability. And so my favorite topic of, as you're a CFO and you want to scale your business, you want to spend a lot of time on as early as possible. And, one of the things that's been great about being a finance executive over the last 10 years or so is how much this has changed and how much the industry now allows you to do so much internally with a much smaller team because of software, because of systems. And the danger is if you throw systems. The metaphor I used to give is, we were an early adopter of Salesforce. It's like one of the first 500 clients. And back in the day, we just put on opportunities, put on stages. We didn't give much thought. We just grew it. And at some point, it was just ugly. It was hard. I'm sure it's familiar. It was ugly to manage Salesforce. And so we stepped back and we made it sort of organized. It was almost like Manhattan, where downtown Manhattan is a mess of streets, no organization, no thought processes, whatever they wanted to build, they built. And at some point, they have a grid. That was like our system. And so what you want to do is get to the grid as soon as possible. And nowadays, it's not just one CRM you have to worry about. It is a maze of things. And this is an example of our internal tool maps, right? We are running about 80 pieces of software to run our business. We're not that big. We're like 320 people, right? So we're still using software to run the business. And this is what I mean. This is great. You can do so much. You can get so much information. There's so many parts of the business. You can use data to drive decisions. You can use it to drive compliance. I mean, you can see how it all integrates. But if you didn't have organization and you think about this, you see how this would be really difficult to manage. And some of the sort of the tips I have are have an internal development team. This has been the biggest win I've ever had with systems. In past companies, I've always wanted this. I always want to have dedicated developers who are building internal systems. We always put it off because it was always more important in our mind to be scrappy and let's hire the DBA, not someone to make sure the Salesforce APIs work. And at Stack Overflow, we actually have a team of 3 people. Their main job is making sure that big amoeba of systems works well together. And it's been great. It has really paid off in a lot of ways. And I feel like it's helped a lot. Other thing is be really disciplined around single sources of truth. So what I mean by that is you have one place where people's names are, right? You have one place where the client names are, where client IDs, or payroll, or whatever it is. You don't want to have to manage multiple, basically, databases of sources of truth. Create maps. Like I showed you one example of a map there. I'm going to show another one in a second. I'm a big fan of also effective BI tools. I think there's we use a tool called Looker, which it's worked really well for us. And I think that the key is as you build these systems out, you have an immense amount of data. And data can be confusing if you have too much of it. And so what you're trying to do is you want to have tools that will help give the right people the right data at the right time, so it's driving decisions. It's not just dashboards, right? You want to be able to drive decisions. That's what tools can help you do. And the other thing I love to talk about is, back when the cloud started happening, right? So the first version of the cloud for us running businesses was really about storing data in the cloud, not on your server, not in paper. That was helpful. I had a CRM with my leads in Salesforce. I had some version of a cap table. It wasn't each year's, obviously. It was like 10 years ago. So it was data in the cloud. What I'd love to talk about now is move workflows in the cloud, move services in the cloud. And there's a lot of things you can do now. Like we have all of these services, we have equity opportunity shares where, yes, we have a cap table on there and it's organized and that's all fine. But the cool thing about something like that is it moved the whole, option acceptance process into the cloud. We didn't have to make PDFs anymore, send them around, people sign them, store them, we never get them all. And then due diligence, we had all these holes to fix. So that's one example. AP. We used to do all processes, you get an invoice, get it approved by the business person, accounting creates a check goes on my desk, I sign checks, and then I stamp checks, that was a big improvement. But now, that's all in the cloud, right? So now it's we use Sinclair.com, there's a workflow process, approval process, I log in on my phone, I see some buttons, and vendors are paid. Accounting close is another one that I found. Accounting close is a big part of scaling and having an organized team able to close in some number of days, right? I always use 10 days for whatever reason. 10 days, 10 business days, you should be able to close by. It could be different. Oracle closes in 1 day, right? But for us, without a team of 5 accounting people, 10 days is reasonable. The thing that made that possible was, in some ways, we got this. Essentially, it takes the whole close process into the cloud that creates automatic. Tasks for people to do, order of things to happen, how these sort of immunizations work, and all that stuff. So that's been great. Contract management, the next one. I talked a bit about that earlier. Is that having a way that you could create contracts with clients. So we have 7,000 clients, right? So it's really not a scalable process to do it where every contract gets done by hand and signed by hand and inputted by hand. So you want to have something where it goes right from the order entry. So your order entry when you close a deal to creating the contract, and hopefully the client signs it without any edits. That never happens exactly that way, so it goes to legal and there's some edits. But either way, the contracts are managed and created in a way that is sort of the whole workflow now is in the cloud. Because in the end, what you're trying to build, because before you're public, you have to be able to not only have accurate data, timely data, you have to have predictable data, right? You have to be able to predict bookings and revenue, 6 quarters out. So in order to do that, you have to have a good pipeline, you have to have good financials, you have to have accurate understanding of expenses, and and also auditable, big deal, right? So as part of effective audit, you can only do an audit in 6 weeks if a lot of these things are automated. If you have a lot of manual pieces, a lot of data entry, a lot of exceptions, auditors just live at your office, and it's they will expand at any time they can, right? So you have to really have hard deadlines on them. Manage auditors. Only way you can really manage auditors effectively is if you have processes that allow that to happen. One thing, this is kind of an ugly thing, so not supposed to be able to read it, but this is one of the, I think, effective CFO tools you can have at a later stage is, can you map yourself interest to order and order to cash? Those are 2 really important workflows that not only can you map it out, right? So this is ours, like so. So we have, for example, we have a client visit sites through HubSpot. Interest, great. Automatically set into Salesforce. Lead contacts, they get assigned to sales, whatever. So then it goes into order entry. Order to gets contract goes into our system, and then order to cash. And so what we did was we mapped this out. And where are our holes? What isn't automated? What's not going to scale? What's the future? And when I looked at this is a little while ago, I said, well, we're pretty good. We scale well, and interest to order is actually really well done now. The order entry is set, because that's all automated. Invoicing is a little bit of a problem. RevRec for us at the time wasn't scalable because it was done through systems, spreadsheets, and then the accounting system. So I mapped it out. So it was a clarity on what do we have to work on in order to be able to be a public company, just from a citizen's perspective. Never mind predictable revenue, addressable markets, and all those other business questions. But your systems, where is the problem? Where is the possible problem with being scalable? So I like having a map like this. Because traditionally before you map it out, it's in people's heads a little bit, but not the whole thing, right? Usually sales and marketing gets just to order, and accounting gets order to cash. And maybe it's in your head, but this is a helpful tool as well, just to roll it out once in a while. And it helps the team understand, especially if you have an internal systems team. Developers love this stuff. They love seeing what the answer should be, so they can build the in-between things. So operationally, I think this is a good tool as you scale to make sure you have that. And that's it. Thank you.